5-Minute Pearls for Clinical Practice. Today's pearl is called See One, Do One, Teach One. Hello, this is Dr. Brian Morris, and this is 5-Minute Pearls for Clinical Practice, where you will learn the tools to provide exceptional care for your patients. This is the weekly podcast where you will be introduced to time-tested, evidence-based patient care strategies that aren't always taught in schools or training programs, but are nonetheless crucial for success in clinical practice. And each podcast episode is about 5 minutes in length. I've been practicing internal medicine for 20 years. I went to medical school at Johns Hopkins, I trained at Yale, and I previously held a teaching position at Harvard Medical School. I currently practice medicine and hold a teaching appointment at UCLA Medical School here in Los Angeles, where I teach these patient care strategies to medical students, house staff, doctors, and other healthcare providers. This week's Pearl is called See One, Do One, Teach One. One of the biggest struggles that we have as healthcare providers is helping patients change their habits. Changing a habit, whether it's stopping smoking or exercising consistently or eating less fatty food, is sort of like learning any other new skill. It can sometimes be very challenging for any of us. As clinicians, we're often asked about what it takes to learn a new skill, what process works for most people. In medical training, students are often instructed when they're learning new skills to see one, to do one, and then to teach one. What this means is to learn a new skill involves 3 steps. The first step is to watch someone perform the skill that the person is trying to learn. The second step is to actually perform the skill oneself. And the third step is then to teach that skill to another person. I've thought about this process a lot, and I think back to my medical training and how we learned different skills. I remember the various clinicians who would show us how to perform a certain skill, and then we would practice the skill ourselves, and then thirdly, we would teach it to someone else. And I thought this was a really powerful process. For example, let's say someone is trying to learn how to take blood pressure readings. It could be helpful to watch someone else perform blood pressure readings, but ultimately there's not that much to gain from watching someone check blood pressures over and over again. The second step, and probably the most important step, is to practice the skill yourself. Once you practice the skill enough, it turns out that step 3 is also very, very important, teaching that skill to someone else. There's something really powerful and instructive about becoming a teacher and trying to pass on information to someone else. There's something very powerful and instructive about becoming a teacher and trying to pass on information to someone else. Nothing helps us to learn a new skill faster and in more depth than having to know it well enough to teach someone else. It turns out that this process of watching, doing, and then teaching also applies to helping patients improve their habits. If you're trying to get someone to stop drinking alcohol, for example, you might encourage your patient to meet with someone who has given up alcohol and has been sober for a long time. That would be the watching phase. After that, you might encourage your patient to practice sobriety under careful monitoring by a healthcare team and perhaps a sponsor or a counselor. Thirdly, the patient would hopefully and ultimately try to show others how to practice long-term sobriety by becoming a sponsor him or herself and thus be able to help others. 12-step groups know this process well. See one, do one, teach one. Learning a new skill is very challenging, but moving through the 3 stages of watching, doing, and teaching increases the chance of success and also helps support others at the same time. The next time you're working with a patient and thinking about ways to help him or her learn a new skill, think of ways that you might help the patient see the behavior practice, and then try to find ways for the patient to practice this new skill in a controlled environment. And lastly, try to find ways for your patient to pass on what has been learned to others. You'll find that not only are you helping your patient, but you're also helping others to improve their health. Let's keep the dialogue going. Let me know what you think of this week's Pearl for Clinical Practice. See one, do one, teach one. Post your comments and your experiences on the 5-Minute MD Facebook page. You can email me at drmorris@5minutemd.com. That's DRMORRIS at 5minutemd.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Brian Morris MD. And of course, you can visit us anytime on our website, 5minutemd.com. Let your friends know about the podcast and make sure that you are subscribed on iTunes. When you subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, you will receive all new pearls as soon as they are posted. Thank you so much for listening. This is Dr. Brian Morris. I will see you at the next 5.